Hey, what's up guys? For today's video I decided to test out the tracker perk to see how it worked and whether it was ever worth using here in Black Ops 4. So in order to find that out, first off I'm going to have to go over how it works and show some testing I did on it to see if it's usable in its current. And just as a side note, in the background I've got a pretty nice Cordite nuclear gameplay in the Endurance Chaos Mosh Pit playlist. I was running the Cordite with Rapid Fire and Long Barrel, with the Scavenger, Flak Jacket, Gung Ho, and Tracker, and the Stim Shot. And I got really lucky with the enemy team as they were pretty bad. So first off, we'll look at Tracker's perk description. It reads, see digital imprint of enemy footsteps and receive an alert on your HUD when revealed in enemy fog of war. So now that we got that out the way, I'll go into more detail on what both of them. First off, let's cover what the HUD indicator is and how it works. You're going to be seeing it a lot in the background gameplay. So here's a picture of it on the screen. This HUD indicator goes off whenever you're on the enemy's minimap, whether that be due to them seeing you in the fog of war or if they have a UAV up. Right off the bat, you're going to see one of the reasons why I consider this perk to be underpowered, especially when compared to other perks here in Black Ops 4. This part of the perk is somewhat similar to the Instincts perk that was in Call of Duty World War II. However, in that COD game, when the indicator went off, it was much more visible to see, as it was basically a yellow light that went off on the left and right sides of your screen. In Black Ops 4, however, it's a bit harder to notice it going off, especially when you're focused on something else like aiming at someone. Later on, I'm going to go into more into depth on why this aspect of the tracker perk isn't that useful in its current state, but now let's go to the second more well-known aspect of what this perk does. The second aspect of tracker is that your enemies leave behind visible footsteps that last for a certain amount of time then fade away. I did some testing and I'm showing it in the background right now. The footsteps you see that the enemies leave behind when you're running the tracker perk last for only 6 seconds, and as you can see they glow white. Unfortunately, they aren't very bright or noticeable, and this is another weak aspect of the perk that I'm going to get into more. As a final bit of testing I did, I decided to test out whether there are any perks here in Black Ops 4 that counter this footstep effect that tracker causes, and the answer is no, it doesn't have a counter. I tested Ghost, Dead Silence, Team Lick, Skulker, Engineer, Tac Mask, and none of these lower the time it took for the footsteps to disappear. So now that we got that testing out of the way, I'm going to go over what I think of this perk and what its practical uses are. So let's first cover that HUD indicator aspect of tracker. At first I thought it wasn't very helpful, and I still do for the most part. However, as you can see by the background gameplay, it is somewhat helpful when you go against bad players. The reason for this is that they take longer to shoot at you, so by the time they start hitting you, assuming you had noticed you had been spotted due to the indicator, you should have been able to get out of their line of sight. Against decent players, however, it doesn't work nearly as well, because if you get flanked by a good player, by the time you notice a HUD indicator, they probably would have started shooting you, and they probably would have killed you most of the time. The HUD indicator aspect of tracker would be much better if it gave you the direction of where you were being targeted from. If they were to buff tracker, which I think they should, this could be an option that they could take. So first, let's cover the HUD indicator aspect of tracker. I'm sure there are some rare occurrences where it's useful, but seeing as it doesn't give you the direction from where the enemy sees you from, and the health is higher in this game, so it takes longer to kill, unless you get like sniped or something, I don't find it to be that useful. If you die quickly in Black Ops 4, let's say similar to like Modern Warfare 2 or Call of Duty Ghosts, then knowing when you're being targeted would be helpful because you then know when you have to try and sprint out of the way and like slide to cover. And like I said already though, that's not the case. And if someone does sneak up behind you, knowing that they see you in their line of sight, realistically oftentimes won't give you the chance to get away, as opposed to knowing it like a second or two in advance that they were coming up behind you. I'm sure there are some instances where it can help you, but it would be much better if it gave you the direction of where you were being targeted from. If they were to buff tracker, which I think they should, this could be one option that they take. The HUD indicator also lasts for like 2 seconds after you're spotted, which can also throw you off. That's because it makes you think you're still being targeted when you're not, and that makes you think someone sees you from one of the available lines of sight when they don't. This would most likely make you run away from the perceived threat, when in reality there was no threat. This is the only aspect of tracker that actually hurts the user in my opinion, whereas the other aspects might not help the user enough, but they don't hurt him. And I think this really needs to be fixed. As for the main aspect of tracker, the footsteps aspect, is that useful? Well, from my experience, not very often. First off, like I said previously, the footsteps aren't noticeable enough. They really need to brand them or color them like red or something so that they can become easier to see. Throughout the games when I use Tracker, sometimes I ended up missing the footsteps that were on the ground due to them not standing out enough. And even when you still do see them, I'm going to have to say once again that it's not useful. See, the problem is that with stuff like Fog of War and Black Ops 4, if you see someone's footsteps on the ground, a lot of the time they'll still be in your field of view and they'll show up on the radar because of that. Also, if you're running the acoustic sensor, that'll also give you an indicator of where someone is unless they have on dead silence. More importantly though, Tracker doesn't give you a preemptive warning of where people are coming from when they're headed towards you, and that's what makes it kind of useless. If you see someone's footsteps and you follow them and find the person, chances are that person wouldn't have been a threat to begin with because they weren't facing your direction. However, people that are coming towards you are the actual threats, and Tracker doesn't do anything to help you in that regard. Due to the way Black Ops 4 plays, most of the times you'll be getting into head-on gunfights, whereas running after Tracker footsteps does very little to help you. And if you pay attention to the gameplay in the background, there was only 2 instances where the Tracker footsteps actually helped me. And I still haven't mentioned Tracker's competition in the 3rd perk slot. Dead Silence is one of the best perks in Black Ops 4 at the moment. Ghost got buffed like a month and a half ago, and it's now relatively useful against UAV spam. Team Link is the only one that is, I'd say, similar in viability to Tracker, but at least Team Link will tell you sometimes that someone is directly behind you, or that some people are coming towards you. So out of all of these Black Ops 4 Perk 3 perks, Tracker is dead last in my opinion. So for some buffs to Tracker, I mentioned some previously, but I'll go over them again and add a new one. I'm not saying all of these should be used to buff the perk, but 1 or 2 would definitely help, and these are suggestions after all. They really need to make the footsteps easier to see. They could add a directional HUD indicator of where you're being seen from, and not have it stay on your screen even when you're not being targeted. And lastly, and this one is new, they could add a preemptive set of footsteps coming out from someone who is walking towards you. Just to balance that aspect of it though, they can make it so that it's only like let's say a meter or so ahead of the person, and maybe make it so it's more noticeable when people aren't moving. Basically so it punishes people that are like corner camp. Those are just some suggestions though, and all of them added to Tracker would probably make the perk too strong. This is just my opinion on the Tracker perk though, and I'm interested to hear about what other people think about the perk, because I haven't heard much discussion on it anywhere. So if you enjoy using Tracker and you actually did find it useful, leave a comment saying why. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, it's much appreciated. I'll be putting out more content similar to this in the future, so subscribing would be awesome, and it also really helps a new channel like mine grow. To end off the video, I'll just let the rest of the gameplay play out.